Welcome back everybody. Now, as you all know, I've got a secret little camper trailer project that's been idling along in the background, and the search has been on to resolve the 12 volt for that particular project. Now, I'll ask you, could this be the solution? This is the Bluetti AC200L. Now, Bluetti has a number of nifty little innovations up their sleeve that nearly ticks all the boxes for this particular project, including the brand new D40. Now, this ticks off one huge box, which is that they now provide a dedicated 12 volt output with an Anderson plug. That's right, an Anderson plug, something that we've been all asking over here in Australia to be included with these power stations for quite some time. Now, this is exciting, and I'm going to show you the whole new world that this opens up. So come along as we show you how. So I've discussed on a number of occasions why I think these power stations are a great alternative to a built-in dual battery system. The fact that you can just pull this out and use it in multiple vehicles or a whole pile of different situations is a real advantage, and it justifies the purchase you make when you go and buy one of these. Now, funnily enough, one of the drawbacks of these power stations has been getting decent 12 volt output from them, because you're typically limited to the DC cigarette style outlet like we've got here that you plug your fridge or something like that into, or the USB outlets. Now, I did an episode a few months ago where I actually experimented with and got working a 5 volt, because the USB outlets are typically limited to 5 volt to 12 volt step up converter. Now, that works for things like LED lights where they don't have a great load on the system, because obviously you can only step up so much with these. Otherwise, you have been limited to this DC outlet, and a lot of people buy like a double adapter or something like that if you need to run multiple 12 volt appliances. Now, I discovered along the way that Bluetti themselves actually have one of the highest rated DC outlets in a lot of their units. And they originally reached out to me and wanted to send an AC180. Now, I'd been holding back because I'd already discovered the 200 range, and this second little outlet here, which changes things quite a lot, because you see in the AC200 Max and the brand new AC240, this outlet here is a 12 volt, 30 amp rated RV outlet. Now, it does have its own special connection, which is an aviation style connector and all that sort of thing. But the fact that they output a real high amperage 12 volt supply is a really big thing, because that opens up the world where you can plug them into, say, a fuse control panel or something like that to run the whole canopy on the back of your ute, or in our case, a whole camper trailer, because that's what I'm looking to do. Now, this camper trailer you're hearing about all the way through, should I give you a little sneak preview? I think I will. So here it is. Now, it's a little bit rough at the moment, and I've been stripping it down to its bare bones. This has started out as a he-slip soft floor camper trailer that, funnily enough, a tree fell on. So we've got a few challenges here with the restoration project. Now, the idea, if we flip over to the render, is that we fully restore the body on this, we modernise it, we tiz it up a little bit, and it should look really, really good. On top of that, I'm pulling off the soft floor camper, which is a trend that's really becoming quite popular, which makes things really easy. We're going to put a canvas canopy on it, which will support our rooftop tent and the 270-degree awning. So this will be a really neat little project. On the side, I'm going to cut in an access panel, and that is to house the AC200L. And this will be the main powerhouse for the whole camper trailer. And that will combine into the D40, which I'll show you shortly, to run everything. On the other side, we've got our slide-out kitchen, and this will all plumb into all the power that we're providing through the AC200L to run things such as induction cookers, our coffee machine, everything like that. And I think it's going to be a really cool little project. So essentially, I'll be using the Bluetti via the D40 to power up everything inside our camper trailer, from our fridge drawer to our camp lights to a portable charging station, even some induction cooking. It's going to be really, really exciting. And what you see here is a little snippet of the demonstration board I've made to demonstrate one of the modes of the D40 itself, because it's essentially got two modes. It's got a charging mode where it can charge another 12 volt battery and then power on the system for that. And it's got a load mode where you can actually run it without a battery, like what I'm planning to do in our camper trailer project, and run everything via the D40 through something like a fuse control panel, like you see here. And then obviously we can dabble with things like induction cooking, running our coffee machine, all that sort of jazz. So if you want a little sneak peek of what that's all about, I break all my videos into chapters so you can skip forward and back and have a look at whatever you need to do. But for now, let's get on to what this D40 is all about and a little bit about the AC200L, but we'll cover that right at the end of the video. Now at this point, I should be running through all the specs, the interface, and all those bits and pieces, what all these little things and doodads do, but I want to jump into the combo and what it sets out to do and achieve. But firstly, let's just touch on the AC200L. Now it sits, I would say, at the top of the 200 range. You obviously have the AC180, which is the most popular model, but just bear in mind that the battery capacity of the AC180, while it's nice, compact and easy to move around, is around half that of this unit you see right here. Now jumping into the 200 series, they introduced this second 12 volt port, and that is a critical thing because the 200 series has a lot more 12 volt output that I discussed at the start. So you come in with the AC200 Max, which has been the popular model alongside the 180 for a very, very long time. It's got a storage capacity that's around about the same as this 200L. However, the smarts and charging system inside it is getting a little bit dated and old. So it's a little bit slow to charge. Now, the other model outside of the 200L is obviously the brand new 240. Now, its claim to fame is its IP water resistance. So it's water and dust resistant, but the one con with it is that it has a storage capacity which is lower than this 200L. So you need to sort of balance out and work out what you want. I think the 200L sits in the sweet spot because it's got the full 2048 watt hour battery capacity in it, which works out to roughly 160 amp hours. It's got the 2400 watt inverter to run all your GPO outlets. So that's really good from a 240 volt point of view. And what that means when you're starting getting into these higher rated inverters is you can run multiple appliances at once. But just bear in mind, if you're out and about camping, particularly in winter like we're in now, you haven't got a lot of sunlight, everything you chew out of this, you need to charge back in probably the next day when the sun's out or while you're traveling along. The fact that it's actually got dust caps on all the outlets is heaps better than any other product that I've reviewed to date. And just from using it over the last month or so, this is a robust unit. Down to this button, I think is fantastic. It's a really solid push button that, again, a lot of the units don't have. As we get towards the back of the video, I'll show you the outlets on the side because they're a little bit unique and special to Bluetti. And while you have special cables and stuff like that, there's a huge advantage in that they have screw-on connections so they can't come loose and become dislodged, which is very similar to this 48 volt outlet I'm about to show you right now. It clicks in so it can't be dislodged and it locks the whole thing together. It just provides that assurity and that positive connection that I think a lot of the competitors don't really have. Now, where the 200L varies a little bit is that this RV outlet is actually a 48 volt. So let's bring out the D40 and I'll show you exactly what that's about as well. So this D40, which is an optional extra to the AC200L, is essentially a DC to DC charger. It takes the 48 volt that comes out of the AC200L, which is working on the native 48 volt of the battery cells that sit within these units, and it converts it down to 12 volt via this Anderson plug. And that really makes a big difference because now you can connect your Bluetti to something like the battery system in the back of your ute, your camper trailer, your caravan, anything like that, and you're essentially increasing your storage or battery capacity by the 160 amp hours that's within the Bluetti system that we see right here. So you're essentially doubling most battery storage capacities by being able to connect these all together. So Bluetti provide their specialized cable. It simply clicks into the bottom of the D40 itself, and because it's locked in place, it can't be accidentally dislodged or anything like that. This cable, exactly the same. it goes into the 48 volt port and locks into place. Now if we bring in this little 60 amp hour AGM battery I've got lying around, this symbolises the battery you might have in the back of your ute, caravan, camper trailer, something like that, that is essentially doing the 12 volt system that you've already got. So the first instance where the D40 works is that you fit this up into your caravan, your camper trailer or something like that, and this stays in place. This Anderson you then connect into your existing 12 volt battery system. So I've fitted an Anderson just with some terminals onto this battery. I can connect it up to our D40 just like so. Make sure you've got your red to red and black to black, and now we can turn on the DC port of the Bluetti unit itself. Just like that, you can see the green lights have come on, and this actually has a charging profile for all the different batteries you might come across, whether they be lead acid, lithium or LiFePO, AGM like what we're doing here, and also your calcium batteries. Now you'll see this charging indicator, it'll flash on and off to indicate that it's charging this battery up. Now this is a really good thing because straight away we've connected this 160 amp hours onto our existing 60 amp hour battery capacity. And that is the simplest way of connecting these power stations into your existing 12 volt system. And it means that if you're looking to potentially increase your battery capacity, maybe update to lithium, but you don't want it stuck in the back of your ute, your caravan or camper trailer or something like that, you can leave this battery in, connect all this up, and you've automatically updated and increased your capacity by adding in this power station. We've also got the 2400 watt inverter as well, so we can run our coffee machine, an induction cooker if we want, pretty much anything while we're off grid. And that's what I've been using these units for, and it is a huge advantage. It just brings that little bit of luxury into your off-grid camping that you never thought you'd really need. Or if you're new to it and you want all that 240 volt goodness that comes with having an inverter, it's right here. And again, you can take it out and move it into whatever you want once you come back from your trip and you're just doing your day-to-day stuff. It's a really big bonus and it works extremely well. But I've got a whole different idea for how I'm going to use this. So let's move all this away and I'm going to show you the demonstration board and where all this really comes into play. Now in our camper trailer project, I'm not planning on having an inbuilt battery at all. I'm planning to run the whole lot off the AC200L you see in here behind me here. Now obviously we're nowhere near ready, so we haven't wired anything in. I'm still at the pull apart stage. I haven't even thought about putting it all back together. So I've created a little bit of a demonstration board here, which is representative of the back of our ute canopy, camp trailer, caravan, or something like that with a whole pile of 12 volt circuits. And to show you exactly how this could work in a scenario like that. So you essentially have two scenarios where you have a battery already in place, or if you've got an aging system where the battery is pretty much dead and you want to get rid of it, you don't necessarily have to put a battery back in. You could simply just plumb it all into the D40, which I'll show you here in a similar sort of way to this, and then plug in the AC200L to run it all. Anyway, I want to get into showing you exactly how this works. So let's bring you in a little bit closer to start off with, then we'll zoom out and we'll show you the full context of what this is, because it's pretty crazy, but I think it's kind of cool. We've got our D40 mounted up here, and that is representative of it being mounted in the back of a canopy or inside your camp trailer or something like that. And this sits here and does whatever it needs to do, and then you can plug this in. You just need to make sure that it's within reach of this cord, because at the moment, this is the only available cord to connect the two units together. And it's not a generic cord. It's a proprietary cord that's to the Bluetti, and it contains all the communication that talks between the two units. So that is one thing you need to consider when you're setting all this up. But in this instance, our D40 connects via an Anderson plug to a circuit breaker and into this fuse control panel here. And this generic eBay control panel has a number of fuse circuits in it, ranging from 5 amp up to 20 amp, and it runs through to a control panel. So it's got a remote control panel, which in our case, we'd mount over near our outdoor kitchen. And from that, we can turn all this on and control everything inside the camper trailer from the opposite side of where the Bluetti unit is placed. So just like before, we take our cord and we plug it in to the unit itself. We turn on the DC, which energizes the whole system. And I've actually changed this profile over on the D40 so that it's now connected in the load mode. And that means that you can run a separate control panel or 12-volt circuit without the need for a battery. Now, the two different modes are picked up in that it picks up whether or not it's trying to do a charging profile to a battery or that load mode to provide 12-volt into a whole pole of different or a single circuit within whatever you're trying to use it in. So when all four lights are illuminated, it's in load mode, and we can now switch on our circuits. So I'll take you over to the control panel and I'll show you everything you can run off this Bluetti unit without touching any of the outlets on the outside. So we've still got all of these in reserve that we can use to run 240 volt appliances, which I'll show you shortly. We can charge up USB things, and we've still got our 12 volt DC cigarette style plug that we can plug something like our diesel heater into. So this is pretty cool. And I think this is where the D40 really comes into play, because I can simply unplug this one cord, take it away, and everything else is left intact. So over here you can see my remote control panel that talks to the control box on the other side. I can simply switch this on and you can see these illuminate up. But straight away we can turn our fridge drawer on. So I want to have the fridge drawer that comes out of our slide out kitchen once I rebuild it. And straight away our fridge is running and we've got cold drinks and stuff like that. Now I've got a number of other circuits connected, so we can turn on our camp lighting. So we've got our hardcore strip lighting here that I can quickly adjust to be all your different light modes, and just like that you've got remote and full control of your 12 volt lighting. If I turn the circuit on next to it, we turn on our rock lights, which might be another source of lighting that you have around your caravan or camper trailer. In our case, I'll probably even use two sets of King's rock lights, one to illuminate the inside of the tub and to all our storage areas, and I might also use the rock lights up inside the canvas canopy itself. So there's a few different options that you might do there, but that's not really the whole point of this demonstration, because I've got a few other things as well. So this switch down here, it turns on my USB charging outlet, so I'm now charging up the camera, the drone batteries, all that sort of thing. And again, we haven't even touched the Bluetti yet. This is all just working off the control panel, which connects into that D40. And you can even run a fan. So if I switch on this bottom circuit, that switches on our Sirocco fan, and straight away it's working while our fridge is going and all that sort of gear as well. Now if we come over to the Bluetti itself, we've still got all these ports we can use. So we can charge up our Bluetooth speaker by plugging it into one of the 5 volt, 3 amp USB outlets. I've got the batteries to the camera I'm using to record this, so we better charge them up. I'll plug them in as well. We'll just sit them off to the side here. And then of course we've got our induction cooker, so we can plonk this down here. And while I don't intend on cooking anything as a demonstration in this video, I can simply plug it in, turn on my AC circuit, it turns on, we can turn it on, and we can be cooking away. Now, in my instance, I actually want to run a separate lot of circuits from these GPO outlets over to the other side of the camper. Obviously, this is going to be on the far side, and our kitchen and cooking and everything's on the other. So I'm going to run some circuits around just via cords, and I can simply just plug and play. And that means we can obviously remotely cook. Now, this is where the app comes in handy, because obviously you're on the other side of the camper trailer to where the Bluetti is. You can simply turn your AC on via the app and get cooking, make your coffee or anything like that. So there's a lot of advantages with updating this technology, because you've got your remote control panels, you've got your apps and stuff like that, that you control everything from your fingertips pretty much. This can be located now, particularly with this D40, anywhere it wants, because we've sorted out our 12 volt circuits. They all run independently of this, and then we can actually run some cords out and remotely turn this on and off for our AC supply. And once again, it's really easy to monitor and see what's happening with your DC and AC circuits just by monitoring this control panel, or again, if you're remotely, via the app itself. Makes it dead easy and no drama at all. Now, how do you charge all this, I hear you say? Well, let's quickly touch on that. Then we'll pull this Bluetti out, we'll run through the specs, I'll show you what that's all about as well. On the bottom, you obviously have these two input ports. It's important to note that the 48 flow from the Bluetti into the D40 is one way. It comes out, it doesn't go back. And that is probably the primary point of difference between this and the Ecoflow alternator charger, because not only does it connect to an app so you can see what it's doing, but it actually flows both ways between the two units, which to me is a fairly big advantage. But it's not really a deal breaker because there's other ways around it, and I'll show you how I would run it. But firstly, we'll go into this unit itself, because the huge advantage of this is that you can leave this in place, and if it's connected to another 12-volt battery, it'll run your setup without the Bluetti unit at all. So this means you can have it set up there, you've got your existing 12-volt battery, your 12-volt circuits and everything. You can plug your solar into this red Anderson plug here. So I've actually got a red to grey Anderson adapter because the red and greys are different. So if you've got a standard grey Anderson plug on your solar panels or something like that, you won't actually be able to plug them in because that's how they're made. And it means that you're not confusing and getting things mixed up. So I've simply gone and bought a converter so I can plug this Anderson in and then plug my solar panels in or something like that, depending on how I'm going to get this all set up inside the camper trailer. So from that point of view, you've got 12 inputs through this 12-volt port. The first might be from your vehicle while you're driving along. You can run all your power directly in through this, and it'll be much more efficient in charging up your battery than when it's running through a cigarette-style lighter plug or something like that. The other option, which is obviously what most people are going to do, is you're going to plug your solar panels into this, and that will charge up the battery system if it's connected just to a 12-volt battery. The one big thing here, which is a little bit unusual, is that when this was first brought out, it was sold that it was going to be the same 12-volt 30 amp output. The big difference is that if you remove this and you just have the Bluetti plugged into it, the 12-volt will only output up to 20 amp. It needs this plugged in and solar panels connected to it, generating a supply to the unit to actually output that full 30 amps. I don't think it's, again, a deal breaker, but it's a little bit unusual that you need to have both the Bluetti and solar supplying your 12-volt circuits to get the full benefit of that 30 amp output. 20 amp, I found, has not been a drama at all. I haven't overloaded this or come across any issues at all because everything these days is fairly low amperage. It's only things like maybe a water pump, if it's running when the compressor on the fridge is on, you've got a diesel heater starting up, that you might have a slight issue. But you want to stage and sequence these things so they're not loading the system right up. But that's a little bit of a peculiar thing that goes on with the D40 itself. And I think that's where it's getting some unusual or negative reviews, because you've got to buy this separately, and it was sold that it provides the same 12-volt 30 amp output of, say, the 200 Max or the 240. And the other thing that I noticed when I watched Ty Fenwick's review or quick run through of the D40 is that you can't actually use this to backfeed and charge the Bluetti unit up itself. And I understand that. That's probably not a really big issue, because in my opinion, you would just charge the Bluetti unit up. Say if you're running this off the Bluetti, you put your solar into the Bluetti because it's got the built-in charging system, it's got the smarts, and it'll do it the most efficient way possible. You then plug the Bluetti back into this and then run whatever you're trying to run from this, given that anyone that has a D40 is running a system somewhere else, and it's just providing that interface between either your built-in battery, so you've got that extra supply coming in, or in my case, it's actually providing all the 12-volt supply. So in this setup behind me here, I'm going to be charging the Bluetti unit which is then going to be feeding this, which is then powering everything there. It just becomes a little bit confusing if you've got this connected to a battery and you're trying to charge the two things at once, because I probably won't actually use the solar input into this because I'll be doing it into the Blue Yeti unit itself. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Now I've probably gone into that a little bit too much as part of this video because I'm trying to keep it nice and short. So let's quickly run through the AC200L and then I'll tell you what I really think about this. But so far you can probably get a fairly good idea. There's a few compromises. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well and it solves a huge issue for me in providing that whole 12 volt system that I can't get from the Jackery or the Ecoflow or anything like that. Now, because this video is getting quite long, I'm going to keep this section a little bit brief, but I want to give you a little bit of a snippet for what I'm thinking about for a future episode. I want to do a full rundown of this AC200L and do a full comparison of a portable power station such as this, seeing as though we're now really close on the 12 volt side with a full built-in battery system. So if you're starting from scratch and you're buying everything from new. So we'll do a full value comparison, the pros and cons, functionality, and all of that. So I'll be running through the comparison between the AC200L and the D40 against buying a lithium battery, a DC to DC charger, a 240 volt charger, an inverter, all the cabling and stuff like that. And I think everyone will be really surprised by how close these two things will be, because I've already laid it all out. I've got the cost comparison, so I think that's the video I'll make to tie the AC200L into that full package. And I'll run through all the bits and bobs with that. But for anyone that's interested, this is actually, I think, the sweet spot as far as portable units go. I wouldn't go too much larger than this, but it's obviously got that capacity to make for a really great weekend out or even a full week, depending on how you use it, without having to worry about charging it up too much. So the physical dimensions of this unit is that it's 420 millimeters long, it's 280 millimeters deep, and just under 370 millimeters high. And it weighs 28 kilos, so it's not necessarily light, but it's about what you would expect for a unit of this size. Now the good thing about these is that there's nothing on the rear of it, so you can push this up against the wall or anything like that. You just want to keep some ventilation and access around the three sides, because it obviously sucks the air in and ventilates from the ends. You've got your DC and AC inputs from the side here, and obviously all your cords and outputs go out from the front. Now where these newer generation units really excel over their older counterparts, in this case the AC200 Max, is the inputs into the units themselves, and that's why they're so efficient. So the AC200 Max, if you're wondering, and why I would prefer this over that, even though you need to work around the 48 volt output and the D40, but I think that all kind of works, as you've seen through this video, is that the AC200 Max has the old brick type power adapter that goes into the side of it. And now that limits the AC input to 500 watts. This, on the other hand, has a massive 2400 watt maximum AC input into it, which is huge. It means it will charge from 0 to 80% in under 45 minutes, which is absolutely incredible. And it's one of the quickest that are out there on the market to date. Now this has a maximum solar input of 1200 watts, which again is really high and way above the 900 watt maximum input of the AC200 Max. But that even isn't too bad. It's just how it actually processes it through in regards to the charging profiles that it uses. So it's just a much more efficient unit than the AC200 Max. And it's really an equivalent to the AC240. It just has that higher capacity in that 2048 watt hours, which I will clarify is 270 amp hours, not the 260 I've been saying through the video. Now, as far as outlets go, this is actually quite good in that it's got the 4 GPOs. So in my case, I want to run some leads out to the other side of the camper trailer, and that leaves me some spare to plug in anything else that I might need to do. From a USB point of view, you've actually got 2 100 watt USB-Cs, which is great. Most of the units I've seen to date only have 1 USB-C, so you've actually got some really good power coming out of the USB side of it. And then in the middle here, you've just got your standard 3 amp USB outlets, and there's 2 of those. So the layout and how these all operate is very, very similar these days. It just comes down to the specification, the price, and all of that, which is why I want to split this out and do it as a separate video, because don't forget, I've got the Jackery 2000 Plus, which is very, very similar to this, that we can compare side to side and actually see what the differences are there. The big advantage with the Blue Yeti is that 12 volt side, and surprise, surprise, it's actually a lot cheaper than the equivalent Jackery model as well. So it'd be very, very interesting going through that. On the app side, again, it's fairly generic, but one thing I will note is that on the homepage, it's actually got a lot more bits and pieces rather than just linking to the specific models you've got in the app itself. It's got another layer in front of it where you can go in to buy other products. There's some helps, tips and tricks. There's even a link to a forum and stuff like that. So Blue Yeti's got a lot more on the front end of their app than what a lot of the other brands do. That would be a bit of a point of difference. Now, if we quickly spin the unit around, I just wanted to quickly point this out. I was actually really quite impressed by this. And while it introduces another cable type that's not standard through the industry, such as an XT60 or something like that, they have their standard, what we call aviation plugs, that actually plug into the back of this. And as opposed to a lot of other brands where the plugs can pull out of the ports, they're actually threaded and screwed on. So you don't have to worry about your cables accidentally becoming loose and dislodged from the side of the unit. Now, I think that is a really big advantage, particularly if you're out and about and things are moving around. You want to make sure that if you're charging this up, that everything is it's in nice and secure, and it's not going to dislodge and come loose, particularly when you're struggling with the sunlight, like we've got in the middle of winter here, and you don't want that someone tripping over and pulling that cord out. You come back in the afternoon and your unit hasn't topped up. So they've got a few innovative little bits and pieces that are quite different to a lot of other products that I've seen. But the good thing is Blue Yeti provides a lot of the cables and adapters that you need to work with standard things, such as solar panels. So this is their standard cable that actually plugs into the back of the unit and threads on. It's got a larger XT90 port on the end of it that then plugs into an MC4 adapter that they provide. Now, by chance, I've actually got XT90 onto an Anderson converter as well. So that means in our case, we can plug straight into the solar panels we already have. I wish Blue Yeti actually sent me some solar panels to try out, but what I found with the Jackery in particular, they were amazing. They outputted more than what they're rated for, and I'm hearing the same with a lot of the Blue Yeti products as well. And so that's essentially it. As I said, there's a few little compromises. It's not perfect, but that works really, really well. As you can see here, it's pretty seamless once you get it all wired in and plugged in. And I love the fact that you can still remove this and use it for other things around the house, in other vehicles and stuff like that, which I've said numerous times through this video. I think it's actually a really good solution. And while it doesn't backfeed through so that it talks both ways, like the Ecoflow alternator charger, it does 80% of what that does, and it does it really, really well with no dramas at all. It's a real simple unit. You don't have to worry about the technology and Bluetooth connection into an app and it not working and stuff like that. Simply plugs in, you hit a few buttons, does what it needs to do. And that really is the key of this video. The fact that you're connecting everything inside your caravan, camp trailer, ute, anything like that to the Blue Yeti, and you're making it one full integrated system, which we haven't had up until this point. And I think it's great that these manufacturers are listening to us and coming up with these solutions, because this is the thing that we've been waiting for. This is really, really good. Even in the other units where you've just got that 12 volt 30 amp port, that is a game changer. It really, really is. It changes how we go about using these units, and the fact that we can now integrate them into what we're building is a really, really big thing. And the huge advantage you need to remember is that you can pull all this out and use it for something else. Your investment in a fixed battery system is in whatever you fix that into. This is a multi-use product you can use around the house. You can do anything with it. If you're working from home, you can power your whole office setup with it. I'm really keen to try running the pool off it and just see what the cost savings we get over a few month period might be, because that pump runs for 6 hours a day pretty much every single day of the week, and a little bit more during summer. So that's a fair load. But even during winter, when it's just idling along, this might be a great solution to cut those bills down when we haven't got a lot of solar coming in through our solar panels on the roof. It's pretty cool. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's probably dragged on a little bit longer than I planned, but I hope you're also really excited by our camper trailer project. I'll be starting to release videos on that soon. Everything is happening here at the moment. It's awesome. I'm going to install this fridge here into the Swan, and now I might even have a solution for putting a lithium battery in as well, using the spare D40 I've got in here, and I'll show you how that works. So stay tuned. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, now's a really good time. Put a few comments down on what you think about this. I know it's only for a specific range of people, but I think it's got a fair few uses that even Bluetti probably haven't even really thought about. But I've got to wind this up, so as I always say, thank you for watching. Get out there, stay safe, have fun, and we'll catch you next time.